Good Erev Shabbos and welcome to Parshas Vayetchanan. Shabbos is known as Shabbos Nachamu, Shabbos of consolation, Shabbos where the bad and the pain of the past 3 weeks begins to turn around. And please God, over the course of the next 7 weeks, there is not only consolation but reconciliation and a signing into the Book of Life for a wonderful upcoming new year. In this week's Torah portion, we read the first verse of the Shema, the famous Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, which, as you know, that first paragraph ends with the commandment of Chsavtam al mezuzah is Beisecha v'Yisharecha. You should have a mezuzah that you should place at Beisecha v'Yisharecha on your house and on your gates. What's the difference between a house and a gate? The late Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, Rabbi of Gush Etzion, notes that these are terms that Yaakov Avinu, our patriarch Jacob, used at the beginning of Parshas Vayetze, way back in the book of Genesis, when he woke up from his dream and he said, Ein zeh ki im beis Elikim v'zeh shar hashamayim. This is the house of God, the home of God, and this is the gateway to heaven. There is a home, and there is a gateway, a portal to the outer world. Home is a place that is insular and that we develop ourselves and our family. And it's done in conjunction with an awareness that it's to move through that shar, through that gateway to the outside world. So one of the explanations given as to why it's important that there's a mezuzah on the door over there is so that as you step out from your house and go out into the outside world, you're reminded that all those special values that you've maintained inside need to be carried forth outside. We're facing a dilemma worldwide right now, this dealing with the pandemic and the question of whether one should wear masks or not wear masks, and there's so much information that one has no idea anymore what's positive information, what's false information. There are two verses in this week's Torah portion that I think address part of the issue. I won't give you the Hebrew, but basically it's look after yourself, guard yourself, and guard your soul very well, that you shouldn't forget the things that your eyes saw, and that you shouldn't go wandering after your own heart all the days of your life. And you should make these ideas known to your children and to your grandchildren. And you should guard your souls very carefully, that you shouldn't see any pictorial, that you didn't see any pictorial image on the day that God spoke to you at the mountain of Horeb, at the mountain of Sinai. And the simple understanding of these two verses would seem to refer to Shmirat HaNefesh, in other words, the guarding of the integrity of one's soul. But the Gemara in the Masechet Brachas tells us specifically that these verses not only to one's soul, but specifically to one's body. In other words, the guarding of one's physical health is a mitzvah. Why are there two verses that seem to be saying essentially the same thing? The Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad, known as the Ben Ish Chai, notes that both verses are quoted, but one is singular and the other one is plural, because of prohibition against damaging oneself or allowing oneself to be damaged applies both to the individual and to society as a whole, to public safety. And I think face masks are a good example of the need for the two verses. Because if we were just evaluating face masks on an individual basis, we could tell a person, do what makes you comfortable. It bothers your sense of aesthetics, it bothers your sense of comfort to wear a mask, you feel that your liberty is being impinged on, do what you want. And if anything undesirable happens, chas v'shalom, well, then you'll realize you made a mistake. However, when we introduce a factor of public safety, we have to deal with the prospect of saving some by perhaps not making everything convenient for the other. The more one encourages freedom of expression, Damascus, so to speak, as a safe alternative, the more one encourages other people to try it or to resist putting on a mask. And the legislative necessity that has appeared in many countries, where they've chosen to enforce the wearing of masks at the risk of fine or otherwise. Public safety and public policy is an important value. It would definitely be easier for each individual to live in his or her own little bubble, inside their own home, their own house, and not to worry about everybody else and not to have to go out through the gate. And perhaps we've been inundated with that particular situation for the past number of weeks with the lockdowns. But we don't live in a bubble, and we have a responsibility towards the rest of our community. Remember the story of the two people who decided to go fishing together? They jointly rented a boat, and 30 minutes later, and well out onto the water, one of the two pulls out a drill and starts drilling a hole in the bottom of his boat, and the other one shrieks at him, "What are you doing?" The other one says, "What's it to you? This is my half of the boat." There are two phrases that probably originated with Noach. One of them is, "Whatever floats your boat," and the other one is, "We're all in the same boat." Our decisions, not only about safety, but about everything, should always factor in the impact on the broader community and how it's affected by our personal decisions, and should always be aimed at keeping our mutual boat afloat. Wishing a good Shabbos and good sailing.